All right, this is, as I said, this is the agency stakeholder discussion panel. We have Dr. Hawken Shields, Forensic Coordinator from Adult Mental Health Services. We have Gabrielle Chow from Probation, the Probation Supervisor in Adult Client Services Branch in Hilo.
Yes.
And then we have Dr. Kevan Kamisato, Mental Health Section Administrator and Clinical Psychologist, Department of Public Safety, the HCCC. And Carlton, Ruley, Jail Diversion Program. So just like with all the other panels, I will ask you to, if you give your spiel, and we'll start with Dr. Kamisato.
Hi everyone. I think I've interacted with a lot of you, but for those of you who haven't, I'm Kevan Kamisato. I'm the psychologist at HCCC. We are sorry for our department and the terrible conditions you hear about. It is true. It's almost a it is a human rights violation, in my opinion. And I don't think it's ethical or sometimes even legal to have this place operating, but that's beyond my scope. I tried my best to just provide health care for the inmates while they're there, stabilize them as best they can, and if we can't, get them to a place where we can. Please, if you have any chance to talk to any type of legislator, let them know that we need a psychiatric facility very badly. I would say about 49% was the last time I counted of the inmates coming in the door had some type of mental health issue which required us to see them. I would say like almost 90% of them come in the door having recently been intoxicated or are currently intoxicated. I have very limited space. I literally have 2 cells to house females in. Women, excuse me, I'm used to jail talk, but and the rest of it is dormitory housing units. So, and those 2 cells can house about 4 or 5 people each. If we stuff them in inhumane, I think it's designed for 2 people, right? But and both of those cells are full to the brim with mental health patients. And if they get into a fight with their roommate, we only have 1 other place to house them, right? And they're held there for months. So please, if you can, ask your legislators. We desperately need help.
I'm Dr. Shields. I work for Adult Mental Health. I primarily cover the whole island. I work with the AMHD clinics and our other purchase service providers like Care Hawaiʻi, Mental Health Kapua, other programs on Oahu. We currently have probably either someone who's either on conditional release or released on condition. We have a caseload of about 225 individuals on this island who are either in that legal status. We definitely work with the Kona Hospital and Hilo Medical Center. We consult with Dr. McGrath on possible admissions, and they've been very gracious with helping us out. If any attorneys do need assistance with trying to get people linked, give me a call. I'll see what we can do, if we can't do anything. We're just trying to do the best we can with what we have.
Is it on?
No.
Hello?
Yeah, oh, you can hear me? Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I am Gabby Chow. I am a probation supervisor, Adult Client Services Branch in Hilo. And my unit primarily has the conditional release cases among regular probation cases. I already spoke this morning, but I will just reiterate, we are the co-pilots of the defendants that are on conditional release. We are not driving the vehicle. That being said, we are interested in helping streamline the process, make things easier, not more difficult. I appreciate this whole setup today, I think, and especially the handbook. Thank you for all of the players who made that. I am a systems person just by nature, and so to be able to reference something, look at a flow chart, see things the way they should be in a perfect world, and try to replicate that with my department and my staff, I appreciate it. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carlton Ruley. I am the jail diversion specialist for the Hilo side of the island. I've been here for about a year, a little bit over a year. It's good to be here and see all the support for our community. It is greatly needed. I see people every morning in the cell block, every morning, Monday through Friday, and then usually see them on the streets or someplace else a little bit later that afternoon. So to keep putting our efforts into a broken thing is not a wise choice, so I'd like to see a lot of people here to try to make some change. So please, again, I enjoy seeing everybody here, and thank you for all your support.
The first question I have is for the doctors in the panel. What are the ethical considerations as medical professionals that you face and that others in your field face when you're dealing with these 704 issues, and how can the other players, the attorneys, the judges, and other agencies help keep you out of some ethical quandaries?
Well, so the main one that comes to mind is just the difference between my patient and my client. My client is the state, and I'm sure that applies to some of the attorneys here as well. Your client's the state, but or is that different? Okay, well, this applies to me. My patient is the person in front of me, and I want to provide for their health care. Broadly, I work with my medical team and other physicians and psychiatrists, dentists, and social workers. But my client is the state, and a lot of the time things will come up where I'll have to make decisions which will not be in the patient's best interest. For example, if someone requires a higher level of care, then I think that the facility is capable of providing, which happens quite frequently, but they have a court date coming up next week, right? It's kind of a judgment call as to whether or not I hold them in a state of, psychosis or mania or suicidality, some type of safety concern at my facility, which is like extremely inadequate. I don't have a mental health unit, I don't have a suicide watch cell, I don't have a safety watch cell. Like my security staff can't stop them from getting beat up while they're under one-to-one direct observation sometimes, and I show up in there like, okay, how do you get a black eye? And they're like, I don't know, right? It's just like, okay, well, wonderful, but then at the same time, I don't want to put them on a plane to send them to OCCC when they have to be back in court next week. Right, and I know that's going to get them a continuance. I know that if I send them to another facility, that it's going to mean that the examiner's not going to know where to find them, and they're just going to put a continuance request in. So it's a constant balancing act between, the healthcare needs, as well as kind of the fastest way to get them out of jail, which is probably the thing that will affect their health the most. So yeah.
I think for myself, some of the ethical issues has to do with, I primarily work as a consultant with the different treatment teams and with the courts and with the attorneys. So, having to balance, since I'm not the treating physician, sometimes the challenge has to do with releasing information, things like that, and sharing things with other parties that I might be privy to someone else isn't. Trying to keep those things in mind. I think some of the other, ethical issues that I might have, or clinical issues, is actually wanting somebody to be held in custody longer. When I'm talking about custody, I'm actually talking about Department of Health custody. Because one of my primary goals is to get people out of the hospital in a better situation than they went in. Meaning, we're trying to address some of these barriers of why they're not doing well in the community. So sometimes that means we're we're asking for longer time than someone might need, just so we can set up these placements, group homes, or residential treatment programs. You know, trying to balance this, you know, taking the person's best interest in heart and also not wanting to set them up for failure if we release them to the community without appropriate services in place.
Thank you. This question is for Ms. Chow and Ms. Ruley. What are, to do your job, what kinds of information and resources do you need, and who do you go to find that information, and what are some of the obstacles you face in getting that information, for instance, in supervising people on conditional release or helping folks that are on jail diversion be successful?
Okay, I'll have a brief answer. The information that we, again, being the co-pilot, we need to talk to the pilot, meaning the case manager, who is themselves sort of the liaison between the doctor, whether it's at AMHD or, you know, wherever it is. So the case manager is where we primarily will get our initial information from, and usually to use as the liaison to the defendant. That being said, just like in any capacity, some case managers seem to be a little bit more accessible, a little bit more willing to do legwork and come, bring people, you know, answer the phone, call back than others. And so what we do is work to strengthen that relationship so that the defendant ultimately will, you know, get the best possible supervision. I forgot the second part of the question, but that's the primary thing is having that relationship with a case manager.
More, I guess the second part of the question is, what are some of the challenges you face and getting the information you need, and where does it usually come from? Kind of touched on it, I guess.
I guess it would, again, just be depending on who the service provider is and the willingness of that particular person to return calls, bring the defendant in, you know, problem solve with us as to how to find the person. Sometimes it starts with we get a order of conditional release. We don't know where the defendant is. When we look up the minutes, it's like they barely made it through the hearing. So, you know, nobody knows their number, nobody knows who they are. Usually starts with me writing to Dr. Shields and saying, who's the case manager? Where, you know, do they know how to get a hold of this person? So yeah, that's usually the challenge. But again, if the relationship, I mean, I've heard that a lot today about the importance of communication and the relationship, and if that's there, then usually it's easier to get a hold of whoever the defendant is.
Some of the challenges that I face when dealing with some of my jail diversion clients are just getting, you know, their level of acuteness at the time that I meet with them. You know, are they a good historian? Are they able to tell me their past psychiatric history? Am I able to get a good screen from this person? You know, is this person a homeless person, or is this person somebody who has, you know, problems with following court orders and things of that nature? Those are all signs, kind of red flags that me as a jail diversion specialist I look for. You know, because I sometimes I come to the conclusion that if a potential client can't follow a judge's order, or can't make it to court when necessary, or can't do certain things, what makes me think that they're going to be able to meet with me once a month like they're supposed to? What makes me think that they're going to be able to, you know, follow rules, you know, when it's not, when it's, you know, just by me. So those are some of the challenges that I entail when I'm doing my job. Information I need is just, again, like I said, client background and background information, their history from other treatment if they've had it in the past, getting releases of information. I'm dealing a lot recently with people who are not originally from Hawaii, so they have a mental health history, but their mental health history is in Iowa, or the mental health history is, you know, back on the East Coast somewhere. So those are some of the challenges, and, you know, the way I try to work around them is you just got to be persistent. You just got to call, you know, get signatures, call back, leave messages. It can be frustrating. I know a lot of people in here get frustrated by those things too, but it's just about being persistent and, you know, not giving up, because We all know that these clients that we have, if they do go to prison or they do go to jail, they end up being victims again. So look at my job as trying to keep some of those individuals out of that system and out of that loop, and try to get them help so that, once they're done with their supervisor release or with their time, they can go back to their families and go back to as normal a life as possible.
Thank you. And this is a question for all 4 members of the panel, and this is a safe space, so feel free to answer as honestly as you want. And the question is, look, in doing your jobs, what's the number one thing you can think of that is frustrating in your effort to do your job well, that comes from the court and the attorneys involved in cases?
No comment. I think for me, it's not specifically anything that the courts do or that the attorneys do. It's just that I'm not a lawyer, I have no legal training, and trying to interact with the system is very intimidating at times. I don't know who I can talk to for what and what I'm allowed to say to who, and am I violating some, like trial principle that you guys have to adhere to, that you're gonna make you throw the whole thing out, and so it's really intimidating sometimes, and I don't know who to contact a lot of the time, because there's been cases where someone comes in and they're just so incapacitated that they obviously belong in a hospital setting, I've managed to get it to the point where, actually this is the first death that I had at HCCC that was my patient. We had a patient who was extremely schizophrenic, completely wheelchair bound, nonverbal, and we had to shower him and everything. And essentially I had him on a suicide watch, but not because he was suicidal, but because we needed someone watching him at all times, because he was getting beat up by other people and stuff, because he was just so, no one wanted him in their cell. But I managed to navigate it for the first time. We got an order to transport, right? 72-hour hold for transport to the state hospital. For one reason or another, we couldn't get him on the plane. 2 weeks later, he died in our custody, lying on a floor, and it was heartbreaking for me. That was the first death that I had. The second one was 2 weeks ago, I think. And I think some of you may know the case that I'm talking about. We had an inmate hang themselves awaiting a 704. So I need a mental health unit really badly. I'm sorry, I think I hijacked the question entirely, but yeah.
Well, don't hit me for what I say. I would have to say that judiciaries worked very well, I believe, with myself and my secretary, Kim Pratt, who if I didn't have her, I wouldn't be able to do half the stuff I do. I think for myself, one of the things that definitely I find challenging and frustrating is if an attorney moves on a 404 and they commit the person to the director of health, meaning sending them to a hospital setting, I've asked that people consult me on this. I want to find out really why this person needs to be in the hospital. Do they need that level of care or not? If they do, then great. But if they don't, then I want to be able to look at the case and see, because we have to triage these beds. We don't have enough beds statewide. So I think personally that's one of the frustrating things that I have to deal with. I'd really encourage attorneys to give me a call, discuss the case, tell me what's going on mentally with somebody, why they cannot be managed in a hospital setting. But we've talked more than once, Kevin and myself, with regard to if someone needs hospital level care, I try to help them out as much as possible.
Thank you.
So
I got it. I'm relatively new, so everything is frustrating to me. But I'm learning to compartmentalize things. What's most frustrating for me, and it's nothing that can be changed. Well, everything can be changed, but it's nothing that it's going to change. It's just being connected with some of the attorneys. You people are very, 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 very busy. So sometimes, especially with jail diversion, stuff happens at the drop of a hat, and I need to call somebody, and I need to speak to somebody. And again, nothing, defense attorneys, prosecutors, I understand how it goes. You're busy, you got 30 million cases, but just communication, being able to get in contact with you, ladies and gentlemen, when needed, sometimes takes a little while. Again, it's nothing that, it's nothing being done purposefully or anything like that. It's just, that's a frustration. Can't get into the technicalities. I don't want to get into any technical, frustrations because I'm learning as I go. But again, it's just being able to talk to the attorneys when, that one client that I have is having some issues and we're trying to get a 704 hearing or this 72-hour notice, and I want to call an attorney, and I know that attorney's in court from 9 o'clock in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon, so it's like they got an hour and a half to run through 80 million emails and check their voicemail. So just the frustration of the system, being slow at times, and frustration of us being humans and doing those kind of things.
To speak, sort of piggyback on that, what I was prepared to say is, probably one of the most frustrating things is the situation where, something happens immediately. If there's a defendant that is struggling, the case manager will say, they need hospitalization or they're decompensating, and you just as a non-clinician to see something and see someone acting in a manner that I know that they, hospitalization or some sort of mental health attention is what they need. And then the frustration of having to, write a declaration, wait for the letter from the case manager, send it to the prosecutor, wait for them, all of those things. And so at the risk of sounding like I'm trying to schmooze, you folks developing judge and everyone who's on the team, this whole 72-hour hold with a bench warrant and eliminating part of that long and drawn out process is actually very helpful, because that is the frustration. You have someone right in front of you who needs immediate attention, and it's like, hold that thought, let me start this whole long process. And one of the things, because I'm fairly new to this position, it's only been a little over a year, when I started, my background was all in a totally different skill set, working with drug addicts, and so then moving to this mental health population, my immediate first question was, well, where's the flow chart? Where's the manual? Where's this thing that tells me exactly how to do these things? And so I got one that was like really outdated. I don't know, perhaps, someone knows where it's from, 2016 or something it was. Older, okay. And then when people would do things, the different parties, I go, wait, that's not how you're supposed, and here I am, the brand new person trying to tell everyone how to do things according to this, antiquated flow chart. So I really appreciate, the willingness to try to do new things, to try and streamline the process, to try and get everyone here from all different areas and all different roles to sort of get on the same page, or at least start the dialogue of trying to get on the same page. So in the end, the defendant, the patient, the consumer, whatever they are to each and every one of us, is better served in a more expeditious manner. So.
All right. And are there any questions from the audience for the panel? Yes.
I have a question. So I'm with the Intake Service Center pre-trial services, and we screen everyone at the police cell blocks in Hilo and Kona in the morning. We see the need for mental health services and diversion, and we identify those people at cell block. It's a bit frustrating because I don't know, it's like a huge population that funnels down to a very few that actually get jail diversion services or any services at all in the pretrial stage. And so my comment is just like, I don't know if that's because there's a, I don't know if that's a legal strategy. Maybe attorneys don't encourage their defendants to go the jail diversion route, because perhaps, they cannot sustain compliance over 6 months. I'm not sure what it is. Or if it's just a matter of eligibility or case management services availability for jail diversion. And I know that issue is not to be resolved here. My point just being that at the pretrial stage, we can maybe help. It's not maybe a diversion from the system, but we can help to link people with services. I know that we're limited But even if there's something out there, if we can be a player, there's a lot of talk earlier about communication between agencies, and I don't see a lot of that happening on the pretrial side. So I'm just saying, like, hey, you know, like, let's capitalize on the little bit of services that we do have, because if we can get people in treatment early on, maybe we can kind of impact the rest of the system. That's my only point.
I'd just like to comment that one of the things we're doing with jail diversion is, one of the things I'm planning on doing with the jail diversion program is, there's two criteria. One is legal and one is clinical. We have some flexibility looking at the clinical criteria to see if we can make someone eligible for the program. We have that flexibility. But one thing I want to do is be able to talk to the prosecutor's office on both Hilo and Kona to increase the eligibility legally. So some of my thoughts are looking at low-level felony, Class C felonies. You know, like maybe first offense drug-related charge. And look at probably some other kind of charges that right now, you know, exclude people from being part of the jail diversion. I think one of the major problems with the jail diversion is it's voluntary, you know. And so people a lot of times decide not to do it. Mm-hmm. And so we get all these repeat offenders coming through, and then Carlton interviews them for the 10th time. And so I think we need to look at the jail diversion program a little bit better, see how we can relax some of the clinical criteria so we can let more people in, and also broaden the legal criteria so we can have more people come into the program who currently are excluded.
Does anyone else want to comment on?
Sorry.
I agree 100% with Dr. Shields. Expanding our net will help greatly, because I see these repeat people coming over and over again, getting arrested. The same guy I see outside of 7-Eleven when I'm getting my Slurpee in the morning, he's out there. And those are people that I know from in the cell block. So the ability to expand to our a scope of who we want in there would help greatly. I mean, because obviously, you know, when I walk into the cell block every morning about 7:30, 7:45 in the morning, and I start talking to people, and as soon as they hear who I am, I hear down the hall, "Hey, I'm crazy too. Come and talk to me too." So that's the excitement that I have in the morning every morning when I go and I talk to the people. But it's also the sadness that I see too, because I come in there and I see the same guy for the third week, and I'm like, he can refuse. You know, it's voluntary, just like Dr. Shields. He can refuse. You know, and sometimes they do. Why? I don't know. You know, it just depends on the person. And again, usually when I come in there at 7:30 or 7:45 in the morning to talk to them, the people who are really in most need of the services that we had are usually still in that crisis stage. So they're still walking around, pacing. They're still exhibiting acute psychiatric symptoms. They're still talking to themselves. So for me to be able to say that they willingly participate, I don't feel comfortable doing that, because I know that they're not all there at the time. So I don't know, maybe we can, I'm just trying to think of solutions, maybe move it back. It's hard to do when it's early in the morning and trying to screen someone who is not totally there and then ask them if they want to voluntarily participate. It just, I don't feel good, and it's not the right thing to do.
Thank you. For me personally, I really appreciate the comments from this panel, in particular because it's an aspect of my job that I don't get to see and hear about. And so I think on behalf of all the attorneys here, I really appreciate your insight into something that we probably don't think about enough. So join me in thanking this panel. And I'm going to turn things over to Luis to close us out.
All right, I just want to say thank you all for sharing your Friday with us. I'm very grateful to all the people who were willing to participate on the panels. I hope that at least over the course of today, we've been able to impart some knowledge to you folks and expose you to some issues and questions that we have. Again, this is a work in progress, and I hope that if nothing else, that this will start really a productive dialogue amongst all of us, and improve our ability to communicate, because I think one message is loud and clear from today, which is that we all want the same for the individuals that we deal with in these cases. This is a non-adversarial process, and I think we can all do better to achieve the outcome that we really all want to see for these individuals. So again, thank you to the West Hawaii Bar Association as well for their organization. Thank you to Corey Weinberger, thank you to Ann Donna, who has been instrumental. I don't want to take any credit, it's mainly them. And so have a safe trip back to wherever you came from, and attorneys, make sure you check out so you get your CLE credit. Thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful long weekend.